Have you ever tried a solo RPG that everyone swears is amazing and it just doesn't click? Then another one sucks you in for hours, even though you thought you'd hate it. It's not about the genre and it's not about the mechanics. It's about what you're actually looking for when you sit down to play. Next, I will go over the different styles of solo RPGs that lead to totally different gameplay experiences, so that the next game you pick, well, clicks. Welcome to I Roll Alone. My name is Daniel, and on this channel, we explore the exciting world of solo RPGs. The world of solo role-playing has absolutely exploded in recent years, largely thanks to platforms like Kickstarter, DriveThruRPG, or itch.io. On the flip side, for me personally at least, I have been jumping from game to game ever since I started with this hobby. Part of the reason is to make content for this channel, but honestly, the games looked so freaking interesting that I just wanted to try them all. But at some point I had to ask myself, what kind of game am I actually looking for? What kind of experience do I actually want to get out of it? The content of this video helped me figure it out, or at least better organize my thought process. Think of it like a toolbox. If you're trying to turn a screw, you probably won't be needing your hammer. And if you're looking for an introspective and reflective role-playing experience, maybe don't pick the game that has complex mechanics and an intricate combat system. So, without further rambling from me, let's get into the different styles of solo RPGs. So, you know that feeling when it's Sunday morning, you're in your favorite hoodie, and you've got absolutely nowhere to be? Personally, I don't. I got 2 little kids. But imagine you could create a somewhat similar feeling through solo RPGs. I am thinking of cozy and slice-of-life games. In Apothecaria, for example, you take on the role of a village witch, bring potions for whimsical and sometimes serious problems. These games are comparable to the vibes in Stardew Valley and Studio Ghibli films. The goal here is to create charming stories, get to know the quirky villagers, and build a beautiful, unique journal of your magical life. The gameplay loop is relaxing and focuses on the quiet joys of helping others and living in a gentle world. By the way, I will leave a list of popular games for each category in the description of this video. A little bit more on the melancholic side of this category are journaling games. It is like opening an old box from your childhood or college years, old letters, concert tickets, or maybe photos you forgot you had. A classic example is 1000-Year-Old Vampire. This game has you chronicle the long, often tragic, life of an immortal by responding to a series of writing prompts. The game isn't about winning or losing, it's about the act of creating a compelling story through your journal entries. It's about crafting a unique playthrough based on your creativity and on your mood. Now, I will say that journaling seems more like a mechanic than an experience, but I do feel like it's closely tied to the introspection and reflection that comes with these types of games. The reason I say this is because journaling is also a mechanic that some of the games in the next category use, but with a totally different vibe. Have you ever walked past a room at night and heard a slow, creaking door behind you? You told yourself it's just the wind, but you still hurry up and get back into your bed. If you are more into games that give the feeling of a slow, gnawing dread, you might want to look at games that are more focused on survival and horror. A standout to mention is The Wretched. You play a lone survivor on a spaceship trying to stay alive while being hunted by a terrifying alien creature. It actually uses a Jenga block tower as a physical representation of your chip's failing integrity and your ever-increasing anxiety. It's a game about isolation and the sheer will to keep going when all hope seems lost. And while you do journal your experience, the focus is less on prose and interacting with the world, but more on documenting a desperate struggle. And this genre isn't limited to space horror either. It's a feeling that can be applied to many settings. You might find yourself trying to survive in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, a zombie outbreak, or a harsh, unforgiving wilderness. The key elements are always the same: scarcity, a constant sense of danger, and high stakes where one wrong move could mean the end. This is also where we can talk about playing traditional horror RPGs like Call of Cthulhu. In this game, you become a fragile investigator piecing together a terrifying cosmic mystery, constantly struggling to manage not just your physical safety, but your very grip on reality. But what if you are looking for a more classical example of role-playing games? One where resources are tight and the next encounter could mean the end of your character. Imagine you're in a deep dungeon. It's pitch black. Suddenly, a gust of wind rushes past, your torch flickers, then dies. Silence. And then you hear it. The soft, rhythmic clicking of legs skittering closer. They found you. OSR games, or old-school Renaissance games, emulate the feel of early tabletop RPGs from the 70s and 80s, emphasizing high stakes, player skill over character abilities, and often a high degree of lethality. Luckily, character creation is usually very quick, so that if you do die during your first encounter, you can start right again. Not that that ever happened to me. The story emerges through weaving together random encounters, good or bad, and how you deal with them. It's very light on the rules, and as I mentioned, more about your skill than your characters. Think Shadowdark, Kal Arath, Scarlet Heroes, or Mörk Borg. Sometimes, though, you just want to kick down a door, fight a monster, loot, and do it all again. For that, you want to look at your classic dungeon crawler. In these, you deal with procedurally generated dungeons, literally drawing the map as you go. Some of them offer more story or role-playing elements, but oftentimes it's this specific gameplay loop that is the focus. Think 4 Against Darkness, 2d6 Dungeon, or D100 Dungeon. On the flip side, if you want an epic story or more character depth, the next category might be more up your sleeve. Have you ever started a book late at night thinking you'll just read one chapter, just one more page, and suddenly it's 3 a.m.? What is it that creates this excitement of wanting to continue reading? Most of the time, it's the plot. It's just so freaking interesting that you can't put the book down. Luckily, there are SoloRPGs explicitly designed for storytelling. They make you feel like you're an author exploring your own story. You might even call it discovery writing. Typically, they are very rules light and adaptable to any setting, with a primary focus of driving the narrative forward by introducing conflict. They usually do that through simple prompts or yes and no questions. Classic examples include Loner and Tricube Tales. But what if you want a bit more mechanical and character depth? Maybe you want to cast Counterspell in a clutch moment or use Smite to bring down the King of the Undead. That's where your traditional party-based RPGs like Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, and Daggerheart fit into. For these games, you probably need some sort of Game Master emulator to introduce a degree of randomness into your games, to create plot twists and answer yes and no questions. These games are not designed to play solo, and you might need some sort of house rules to adjust the balance level. Both of these solutions are great and can lead to epic stories, but they might also be a bit daunting at first, or maybe you just want to experience a story without having to put in a lot of mental work. I feel like that sometimes after a long day of work. And this is where your classic game book comes in. You might know them as choose your own adventure books, where the story is told through numbered paragraphs and you make choices that guide the narrative. Some even add stats, inventory, and dice combat, essentially becoming a solitaire RPG adventure. They offer a structured, pre-written story and are fantastic low-effort gateway into solo play. Probably the most famous example is a series called Fabled Lands. Speaking of books, have you ever opened up a fantasy novel and stared at the map that is in them? I like looking at them while reading the story to get a sense of where I currently am. It is something that is an integral part of many fantasy books, and sometimes even for special editions and collectors. Now, what if I told you there are games specifically designed to explore worlds and create maps? These games are not about a linear story, but about discovery, seeing a world take shape, and maybe even drawing a map or two. A fantastic example of this is Colossal. In this game, you are an adventurer exploring the Roomlands, which is a castle so impossibly vast that entire oceans, mountains, and cities exist within its rooms. Or games like Cartographer, where you take on the role of a map maker arriving in a new uncharted land. By the end, you have a detailed map that you could, theoretically, use in another RPG. And if you would rather create history instead of a map, there are games for that too. So far, we explored a world, we explored dungeons and epic stories, maybe written a journal too. But there's one more style that we have to discuss. It is for those of you that like it a bit more tactical. Yes, OSR games and games like D&D require tactic, but especially in solo gaming, that is not always so easy, especially if you only play with theater of mind. But there are games that are designed for more tactical decisions and less for stories. They can feel a little bit like a board game. And that is actually the first place to look at. Why not play a board game? Gloomhaven, Andor, or even games like The Lord of the Rings are fantastic and have rules to be played solo. That is visually probably the easiest way. If you do prefer more of a solo RPG, there are games like Rune that is designed to be played on a grid and described as a Souls-like, or games like 5 Leagues from Borderlands that uses a light miniature skirmish system. So, the toolbox is open and all the tools are laid out before you. To stay with my metaphor, it still sometimes happens that you pick the right tool and it's the wrong size. Meaning, it might happen that even considering all of this, that you pick a game that just isn't for you. But how would you go about picking the right one for your next project? Well, for starters, you can have a look at my list in the description. Otherwise, I highly recommend reading reviews, and look for buzzwords in the game's description, keeping in mind the different styles we just discussed. Now, if you are a veteran player, you probably know what you want. But don't forget that you can mix it up here and there, or even combine different styles. But if you are looking for some recommendations for easy and simple solo RPGs that anyone can play, check out my video right here.